We are resuming with the fifth edition of the Grain Literature Festival. And up next, we have a very exciting session because it is going to be a book launch, as you can see. Session titled Island on Edge, Pushing Nicobar Knowingly into Disaster. The launch of the book Island on Edge, The Great Nicobar Crisis, which will be followed by a presentation by Mr. Pankaj Sekhsaria based on his two recently edited books. A massive rupees 920 crore and growing has been aggressively pushed by the government in the ecologically fragile and tectonically volatile island of Great Nicobar Island, which is also the home of two indigenous communities. This presentation is an account of the various concerns with the project related to ecological destruction, violation of tribal rights, safety concerns, and economic non-viability. Before I invite both the author and our guest onto the stage, let me take a moment to briefly and officially introduce them to the crowd. Our author, Mr. Pankaj Sekhsaria. Can we please have a huge round of applause as I introduce him to the crowd? And so, please to join me right here. His research interests lie at the intersection of science, environment, technology, and society. He has a PhD in Science and Technology Studies from the Maastricht University in the Netherlands and has written extensively on issues of environment, development, and wildlife conservation in India, with a special focus on the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. He is also a member of the Environmental Action Group, Kalpavriksha, and a photographer and a campaigner. He has worked extensively in the field of environment and wildlife conservation with a focus on Andaman and Nicobar Islands. His books on the island include The Last Wave, HarperCollins 2014, The Great Nicobar Betrayal, and Island of the Edge, The Great Nicobar Crisis. And yes, indeed a privilege to have you with us right here. And now, with your permission, may I take this opportunity to kindly invite onto the stage Mr. Sharachchandra Lele. Can we please give him a thunderous applause as he joins me on the stage? He's a very distinguished fellow, Forests, Governance and Livelihoods. Thank you so much, sir. It's an honor to have you with us for this edition. And yes, the moment that we all have been waiting for, the book launch. We have both the scholars with us right here. And yes, he will be unwrapping the book and handing it over to the author right in front. Thank you so much, sir. You may join us in the crowd. And yes, now it is time to hand the session over to the author. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much to the Green Lit Fest for giving this platform and this opportunity, and my deep gratitude to Sharad for having agreed at rather short notice to be the chief guest and to do the launch of the book. So what we thought of the session is that I will, for about maybe 20 minutes, make a short presentation on what the project is. First, to kind of introduce all of you to what this is, and then Sharad, he's over the last few days, maybe 3 days, I think he's gone through the book, and I was just looking at his copy. There are at least 8 colored markers on that, like a good academic. So look forward to some of his comments, and then we'll open it up for all of you all to have questions and anything that you want to. And I'm also going to request Sharad and the organizers to tell me at about 15 so I can wrap up in 20 and we have time for other engagement and discussion. So let me kind of jump straight into telling you what this project is. I've titled this slightly differently from what the title of the book or the session is calling it Great Nicobar Island, which is closer to the precipice. This is also the title of the piece I have in the new book. And we of course have, today is the formal release, official release nationally of this book that's just been published about a week or 10 days ago. So it's a perfect platform at a Green Literature Festival to talk about a topic like this, and I'm really grateful to Benedict and the entire team at the Green Lit Festival to do that. And this really is an island on edge. It is one of the most fascinating richest, diverse ecosystems, or a part of an ecosystem in this country, perhaps the world, which really stands at the edge of a precipice for something that is, for a scale of a project that is perhaps unprecedented in the context of modern India. Let me put it that way without really mincing words. This is a project where proposed investment is of the tune of 1 lakh crores and increasing. The project estimates, I mean, you can imagine how much money that would be and what it would do to a small little island, but I'll go into those details. I have a long PPT, but I'll really run through some of the key issues that are there. So just quickly, most of you would know, but the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, located far away from mainland India, this is the landscape we're talking about. And on the extreme south, Nicobar Islands, that little patch of green that you see is the island that we are talking about. And this star is a very important marker of the history of, the contemporary history of these islands, because this is the epicenter of the earthquake of December 2004, the massive earthquake and tsunami, and that has serious implications of various kinds for a place like this. This is a very iconic picture in the sense of the situation. Why is a lighthouse standing in water? I mean, it would be on the edge of water, but why does a lighthouse stand inside water, surrounded by the water of the Andaman Sea? This is Indira Point. This is the southernmost tip of political India. This stands in water because the land of Great Nicobar saw a permanent subsidence of 20 feet on the 26th of December 2004. Land subsided, it just sank, and this is exactly where this 1 lakh crore project is kind of coming up. But just to go back a little, this is a pre-tsunami picture. If you're talking of the southernmost tip of India, then we have to have the southernmost Kirana ka dukan also over there. This was run by Sikh families. This is a 2002 picture when I had been there. And I think at least some Indians, we can say, do have a sense of geography and perhaps history as well. This did get washed away in the tsunami, but I just thought I will anchor it for you as a very interesting geography for various reasons. Now this is, I won't have time to go into it, I'm also not a biologist, but some samples of what the richness of this landscape is. Great Nicobar, which I'm going to concentrate on, is a 920 square kilometer island, of which about 90 to 95% is pristine tropical evergreen forest. There's a small human population, and like was mentioned in the earlier panel, by the 2011 census, about 8,000 people, that's all, of which only 1,000 people are the indigenous communities who have been there for thousands and thousands of years. So it's a very pristine landscape that has not been mapped. A recent story by Rishika, who has contributed to the book, says that we don't even know where the settlements of the Shompen community are, for instance. But, so a very rich tropical rainforest. These are large, long, single strands of the tree fern in the Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserve. You know, you can imagine what is there on the ground in terms of the richness, in terms of the diversity. It is the home of the charismatic, endemic Nicobari megapode, which is not found anywhere else on this planet. It has very interesting breeding behavior. It builds a mound of earth in which it lays its eggs. And the project site that we will talk about is perhaps the most important of the nesting site of this bird. Anywhere you can find it. This is a tractor having entered the sea or probably emerged from the sea. And this is the tractor, which is the giant leatherback turtle, which is the largest of the 7 species of sea turtles, can grow up to 6 feet in length, 700 kilograms in weight. And Galathea Bay, which I'll talk about, where the project is coming up, is the most important nesting site of the giant leatherback in the entire northern Indian Ocean. This is a great mariner. There's records of these turtles breeding in the Andaman and Nicobar and then swimming 10,000 kilometers to the Australian coastline and 12,000 kilometers to the African coastline. So it is that real mariner that connects the world, and one of its most important nesting sites stands threatened. Now, at the heart of this is this massive infrastructure project that was proposed in 2021 at the behest of the Niti Aayog. As you can see on the map on the left-hand side, there are 4 components. There is an international transshipment terminal, which is 60–70% of the budget of 1 lakh crores. So it started with about 70,000 crores, big project, 35–40,000 for the port. Now they're saying 1 lakh crore rupees just for the port. There is a airport that's coming up, and this is a new greenfield township of over 130 square kilometers of pristine tropical rainforest, where government figures say they are going to cut 1 million trees. 10 lakh trees is the official record, is the official number in parliament, and scientists have done back of the envelope calculations to say the number could be at least 10 times more, if not 3 times more. We are talking of the most pristine forest. and then there's, of course, there's a power plant. So this is the project that we are talking about. And at the heart of the project, in some senses, so these are the broad areas of concern. So everything is of concern. I'll quickly touch upon some of these. There is the ecological, there's the geological, there's a very important dimension of the indigenous people and their rights. There are economic, very serious economic issues that have not really been dealt with. One of the first pieces done by a guy who everybody knows and was mentioned in the earlier panel, Rajshekhar, has done this absolutely fantastic piece for Frontline and then for News Minute. Both are there in the book that we released today. He asks the economic questions. There are very serious issues on the legal violations and of course on due process where this is concerned. So this is Galathea Bay, an absolutely spectacular 12 square kilometer or 13 square kilometer little landscape. Here is Indira Point, where we saw 15 feet of submergence. It's maybe 20 kilometers away. And this is the site of this massive port, and which I'm calling the Great Galathea Bay Con. And I'll go into some detail of this and tell you how the whole system has been rigged. Let me put it that way. Why is it not moving? Okay, so this is a closer up of Galathea Bay. As you can imagine, a Google image. Now this is a very rough sense of what you have. You have this about 2.5 kilometer beach, absolutely pristine beach, a white silvery sand, which is the primary nesting site of these turtles, 4 species of sea turtles, including the giant leatherback. This is perhaps the most important nesting site of the giant leatherback in the entire northern Indian Ocean. Latest government department figures say that about in 2024 or maybe 2023, 620 odd nestings were reported in one nesting season, which is the higher ever recorded since nesting is being studied in this particular place. The blue is an area that has a lot of coral reefs. This shows from government maps. 20,000 coral reef colonies are there in this place. What you see in the yellow is a river that comes down, Galathea River. It's the mouth of the river. This is where you find salties. The green line indicates where the megapods are nesting, where the mangroves are, etc., etc. So it's a very rich ecosystem, which is why it's not working. Can we just take this? Okay. Yeah. So in 1997, this was actually declared a wildlife sanctuary. And as you will imagine, this is a CRZ 1A area because this is there are mangroves, there are corals, there are turtle nesting sites. Birds, there are salties, which are Schedule 1 species. So in 1997, this is a wildlife sanctuary, and this remains the case. It's not working. You'll have just, somebody please? No. This is how the case is till 2021. This remains till 2020. No. Okay. Now the port, this is how the port is going to be sited. It will help if I am able to control it. Can you just check? Yeah, in the meanwhile. So in 2021, this is a wildlife sanctuary, and now you have the port imposed on top of that. And we know that nothing can be done in a wildlife sanctuary. So what is the solution to this? Next one, please. You have taken away the wildlife sanctuary protection in a meeting of the National Board for Wildlife in 2021 and say that this is no more a wildlife sanctuary. So when you take out the legal protection of the Wildlife Protection Act, you now can actually have the port to be allowed over here. But it still remains CRZ 1A, which is because of the fact that all these things are still happening over here. Next one, please. Now, these are the minutes of the National Board for Wildlife meeting of 2021. Next one, please. Next one, please. I'm just going to read out from the minutes of the wildlife, the minutes of the meeting, and where the Wildlife Institute of India actually said it is okay to denotify the wildlife sanctuary, and not for any ecological reasons. And if you read the text, it's very interesting. It says, the WI has opined that the concerned authorities develop and implement a mitigation plan to facilitate leatherback and other turtles to continuously nest, for which the connectivity between the Galathea River and the bay should be ensured. Now, this doesn't make any sense, obviously, because this is a marine sea turtle. It has nothing to do with the river, and maintaining of the connectivity is of absolutely no consequence. So this is in the statutory body, in the statutory meeting with authorities that have the power given this kind of language, which then goes ahead and actually denotifies the wildlife sanctuary because the port has to come up, not because the ecological conditions have changed in any kind of manner. Next one, please. Next one. Now this I was like saying, these are the numbers of the turtles nesting. So it's not that because we've denotified a sanctuary, of course, turtles have stopped nesting. ये नहीं हो रहा है. I think you just do it manually. So these are some details of the National Marine Turtle Action Plan, which lists the Galathea Bay, next one, as an important nesting site. Next one. Now, this is a wildlife sanctuary, but this is still CRZ 1A. So there is still a problem. A matter was taken to the National Green Tribunal, which set up a higher part committee, which then commissioned the National Center for Sustainable Coastal Management to look at this landscape. So keep in mind, wildlife sanctuary, denotified, but this is still CRZ 1A, and by the law, a port cannot be sited in a CRZ 1A area. And this is CRZ 1A because we've seen turtles are nesting, mangroves are there, these have not gone away. So what does the National Center for Sustainable Coastal Management do? Next one, please. They come to the conclusion that it is determined, and this is from a submission that is made by one of the project proponents, that construction of port is not permissible, is permissible in CRZ 1 area, but not in CRZ 1A. So they conclude that this part is not CRZ 1A. So it's an amazing, I mean, even language is difficult to understand, but you see what they're doing now. Turtles are still nesting. I think information went out to the turtles that it is not a wildlife sanctuary, but they didn't listen. They keep coming. So it is still CRZ 1A. We have the megapods, we have the mangroves. So now what do? You just say it is CRZ 1B. And it is such a bizarre situation that the MOEF says something in the court, it says something in the public. And as of yesterday, the National Green Tribunal, so this report, which says this kind of bizarre thing, is not in the public domain. So the petitioners' counsel argued if it is not in the public domain, it is against the principles of natural justice. So you can't actually take it on board. This cannot become the basis for your decision. So 2 years after they constituted this committee, the National Green Tribunal said day before yesterday that we will not consider this report. So public money, time is all invested. So a report that you commissioned yourselves, you are now saying you're not going to pick it up. So there's something very, very fishy going on over there. But I'm just trying to point to the con that is going on at so many levels. Next one. So that's it. So you have CRZ 1B, and now port is allowed. Turtles can nest for all you care. Coral colonies can be there. One of the conditions of the environmental clearance is to relocate 16,000 coral colonies from this place to somewhere else. And there are many, many fantastic scientific suggestions, like the forest can be compensated in Haryana, and all kinds of things. And this is top quality scientific research and scientific governance in this country. Next one, please. So like I was saying, look at these figures. 2024, 619 nestings of Galathea of the giant leatherback on that beach, which is neither a wildlife sanctuary nor is it a CRZ 1A now, if you go by the government records. Next one, please. The EI report, I mean, most people here will know what a scam these EI reports are. I'll give you a couple of examples. Next one. This is the text of an EI report done by Vimta Labs in Hyderabad. Keep in mind, this is the basis of the clearance of one of the largest projects in this country. Now 1 lakh crores, 130 square kilometers of pristine forest, some of the rarest undocumented species. And look at the language. They say, added to the problem was biting insects, including mosquitoes. Further, when one tries to look upwards to find out what tree it is not just one but many. There was no threat of venomous snakes as they do not occur in the island. It was impossible to use any measuring devices like tape to make any quadrant in the forest vegetation. Hence, survey was carried out on both sides of the road for 45 kilometers, 8 times in 4 days. So one of the most pristine, the biggest, richest assets that this country has is signed away by shoddy work like this, that is then approved by the Environment Appraisal Committee of the MOEF, and it gets the stamp of environmental clearance based on something of this kind. Next one, please. 5 minutes only? Oh dear, okay. Next one. Some examples of the environmental clearance conditions. No trees will be cut at one go. Look at the next one. Trees with nesting holes of endemic owls to be identified and geotagged with the help from SACON. Such trees shall be safeguarded as far as possible. So if they're not possible, they can be cut. And we did a back of the envelope calculation. 1 million trees, if you have to identify nesting holes of an endemic owl in a tree that is on an average 100 feet in the sky, there are many birders here, we hardly get to see owls, leave alone nesting holes of owls. So we did, if our best birders, assuming they are from Sakon, 10 of them, if you give them 6 months a year to do only this, 5 minutes per tree, it will take 10 years to just map all the trees to find this. So it's an unimplementable environmental condition, that's the point. It's just a complete farce. It's a fraud on all of us. Next one. Tribal rights, I'll just take one because in the interest of time, yeah, next one. So in an island of 8,000 people, the plan is to bring in 4 lakh people. So it's a growth of 4,000%, and you can imagine what the implication will be for local people and for the environment. Next one. Concerns were raised. They said we will separate the settlers and the outsiders and the tribal people by putting barbed wire fences. The latest is some geo-surveillance and something of that kind. That is the next proposal. Next one. This is a timeline of how the Forest Rights Act was violated. And we had an interesting chat with, Sharad was also giving me some more details on that. But in 2007, when the act was kind of enacted, till 2022, the constant statement of the government was that there's no problem, the rights have been settled. So they didn't do the process. But 2022 is also when pressure started to rise, because unless you give clearance under the FRA, you cannot actually go ahead with the project. Next one, please. So what did not happen in 14 years, they did not do anything for 14 years. Next one. Within 22 days, they did the entire process of the FRA and they granted the certificates and say, rights have been settled under the FRA, tribals are now going to be affected, you can go ahead with the project. So when we say that Indian systems are not efficient, I beg to differ. When they want to, you can imagine the kind of, and if I have time some other time, I can tell you how they have coordinated and gotten these things done. It's amazing the kind of clinical efficiency that they can operate with if they want to. Next one. We come to the geological dimension. We are sitting on what's known as the Ring of Fire. This is the biggest, the most sensitive tectonically active zone on the planet. So we have the only active volcano in the Indian context. Next one, please. What happened when the earthquake of December 2004 happened? If you look at my hand for a moment, I'll take 2 minutes more, Sharad. When the earthquake happened, the Andaman Islands came up by 5 feet and Nicobar submerged by 15 feet. So it's like a child seesaw in a playground. Now this is a landscape which earthquakes once a week. There was an earthquake 2 days ago, or yesterday I think. 6.4 on the Richter scale. I'll show you a few hundred kilometers from the site of the project. There was a tsunami warning as well. So we are talking of a landscape that is very tectonically active, very sensitive. And what sense does it make to leave alone the ecology and leave alone the tribal people? Even the economic investment is at deep risk if you're going to go ahead with this. Next one. This is the lighthouse of Indira Point before the earthquake and tsunami. This is the lighthouse today. This is what has happened. And not because of the tsunami. This is because of tectonic shift. And this is a WAPCOS report of 2019, which promotes the project. Oh, suddenly my voice is, which says the topography of the island is best suited, which was not even damaged much even by the tsunami of 2004. So imagine the amount of lies being told to us. I mean, if this is not a damaged landscape, now what do we mean by damage? So this is the kind of fraud that's actually going on. Next one, please. This is of 2 days ago. This is the project site. This is a 6-point-something earthquake just off the west coast of Sumatra. And the yellow shows that there is no threat. But the first bulletin, actually, this landscape was on watch. Tsunamis are going to come, and this has completely been ignored in all the EIAs and all the scientific assessment. Next one. Yeah, there's a lot of question on the economic viability of this. It's not come up, but next one, please. So this is a very interesting, recently written piece by Abhijit Singh in The Hindu, who is an ex-Navy man who was with the Observer Research Foundation. And you can see the title. It's one of the most explicit, say, from one perspective, to say that this is not economically viable. This kind of port development is not going to work because of very many reasons. I don't have time to go into that, but worth looking at. Next one. And this, of course, is in the front line, Rajshekhar's very detailed story, which is also part of the book. So I would urge you to look it up, and he goes into great detail and breaking up the return on investment and interest, interest burden, etc., etc., etc. Next one, please. And yes, Uh, we've taken off the protection of, the Supreme Court has taken off the protection of the Aravalis, I think 2 days ago. But this is what was proposed. So you cut down 130 square kilometers of forest in Nicobar, you make 260 square kilometers of land forest in the Aravalis in Haryana, and more than anything else, my concern has been, what is this 260 square kilometers in Haryana? It is not empty land. People's rights, maybe existing forest, agriculture, what happens to all of that? I don't know. And that's, like your Ganga Snanam after all your papam. Next one. Why? And this, already, this land is also being sold away. So, I mean, welcome to efficiency. Next one. So, this is, I mean, people who've seen this slide, this is a bit of it's an old joke now, but the joke's on us, right? We are going to have a Haryanvi megaport, and I think given all the situation, I think our scientific bureaucracy and our scientific community, I think, is quite capable. And I suspect it's bird-watching friends in Delhi who don't want to go to all the way to take a photograph of the megaport, so they'll have him in their backyard in Haryana. So we are going to have a new species being added to the Indian bird list. Next one. Okay, so the really last 2 minutes, for the last 5 years, we've been working on this, documenting. This is perhaps our biggest contribution of making a very detailed timeline. You can scan this, it'll take you to a PDF that has about 300 dates of the entire sequence of the project. The QR is also there in the book. It gives you timeline, every single date in the project, and every date is then hyperlinked into a Google Drive that gives you access to the document. So thousands of pages of EIA, scientific reports, everything is there. It has been, we did it because we couldn't handle the amount of information that was there. And it has become a very useful resource now for researchers, journalists, etc. So please do use this. If anybody of you wants to do anything about this project, and a lot needs to be done, this would be a very good starting point for you. Next one. Next one. There's also some other stuff that we've been doing. We created a digital archive of historical data on Great Nicobar going back to about 150 years. Next one, please. Yeah, you can get the website. You can access that through this QR. Next one. I've created a completely undemocratic WhatsApp group where only I am allowed to post. But you'll get useful information. You won't get spam or promotions, except maybe for the book. But do join. We have a lot of people. So if you want to know what's happening, it's a very active group. We are posting a lot of information on what's happening there. Next one. And yes, finally, I'm really rushed, but I'm sorry. The book, thanks to a lot of people who've contributed, Westland, who short notice, in 3 months, we published an entire book, all the contributors, also evidence that the media, researchers have all come together. There's a lot of writing on the Great Nicobar project that's available. And this is like it was mentioned earlier, a second volume. We did one volume about a year and a half ago, also of which copies are here. Next one. So that's the Great Nicobar Betrayal, which was like a volume 1. The Island on Edge builds on the Great Nicobar Betrayal. They're about short 13, 14 articles, compilations, largely written by researchers. Sharp writing, I must say, which has helped us to reach out to a whole set of people all over the country and the world. Next one. We've also done language versions in an effort to reach out to people. We've not been very, I got the time out, 30 seconds, yes. Because we've not been able to reach out enough, but we have a Bangla version of the first book, we have a Hindi version, copies are available. We are looking for people to reach out with this, for you to write in other languages, Malayalam, Kannada, Hindi, Marathi, whatever. So these are some of the efforts that we've been making to reach out as much as we can. Next. Next. Thank you very much. That's my email ID at the left-hand bottom.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pankaj, for that insightful presentation. May I take this opportunity to invite Mr. Sharachchandra Lele. Please do join the author on the stage for a conversation.
Thank you. And in the interest of time, I'll say. In the interest of time, I'll just plunge into a few comments that I had when I went through the book. First of all, again, let me congratulate Pankaj for a really wonderful compilation. I think Pankaj's passion for the Nicobar Islands, all of us already know, or if we don't know, it's evident today in the short presentation that he gave us. But let me just say that you're not going to like this book. You're not going to like this book because it's going to make you either sad or angry. it's in that sense, you're not going to, come away with a happy frame of mind. You're going to come away with a very sad, or in my case, it was more anger in terms of what's going on in the name of so-called security, development, glory, and what else, whatever motivations behind this crazy project that has been proposed. I'll just like to highlight a couple of additional things that in the book that I found really fascinating. First of all, it was really interesting for me to see the historical, colonization process that has gone on in the Andamans and the Nicobars. And there are a couple of chapters that talk about that process, including even the tsunami becoming an excuse for, in a sense, repression. Because after the tsunami, a lot of people died, Nicobarese died in that tsunami. And so that became an excuse to move them into encampments. And that was 2004. And ever since then, although they have been wanting to go back to their traditional villages, and not all the traditional villages were really affected by the tsunami, the government has refused to allow them to go back. To me, I find this really fascinating. It's sort of like Salvajudum all over again, where you move people into camps and say it's for your security that we are putting you there, but really it's some other motive behind that. 20 years later also, people cannot go back to their traditional sites. So that was the one thing that really struck me. The related point was that if you look at the fraudulent Forest Rights Act certification that has been given by the district collector or whatever, it's incredible, but it's actually not so incredible, because across the country the same thing has been happening in various mining sites, in various dam sites, where collectors blithely give away a letter which says forest rights have been settled and nothing has been affected, and there is no need for Gram Sabha consent or anything of that kind, when in fact they have not even started the process of telling people what their rights are under the Forest Rights Act, and getting people to claim those rights and then talk to them about consent for the project or otherwise that they might have. So in the vast majority of cases, this has been the story. So it's not a surprise that it happened here. The pressure here is 70,000 crores or 1 lakh crores or whatever the size of the whole project. But I also wanted to highlight a few other interesting things. One, I think Pankaj has already mentioned, in the name of compensation. So the compensatory afforestation in Haryana and the shifting of coral reefs from one place to another. I mean, I think Rohan Arthur and T.R. Shankaraman's chapter on this crazy idea of ecological restoration. I mean, calling it restoration by saying we will cut the reefs in this place, Galathea Bay, and move them somewhere else and plant them, and somehow magically the ecosystem will be restored. I mean, it's just, it was to me an amazing example of what science sort of losing its path, losing its integrity in doing this thing.
Just to add, that's an absolutely beautiful essay by Shankaraman and Rohan on, I think, one of the most nuanced piece of both philosophical writing and scientifically rigorous writing. It's worth reading a piece just for that. I mean, it's a beautifully written piece.
Yeah. The other point I wanted to make was also about the even an official who has been deputed there to run the Tribal Research Institute expresses his angst in no uncertain terms, in terms of what is happening to the Nicobaris, what is happening to the Shompen. The fascinating fact that there is almost no contact with the Shompen whatsoever. They do not want to have any contact with the rest of humanity. Their language, of course, is not understood by almost anybody. There are a few Nicobaris who can do some amount of translation. And the one encounter that this team had when they went to sort of talk to the Shompen in terms of what their views on such a devastating project might be was, do not climb our hills. That was a very clear response that they got from the Shompen community. But they are characterized as PVTGs, particularly vulnerable tribal group, and so on. But that's all, on paper. And in practice, their views on this subject are completely ignored. And I think this is to me, it's an expression of the kind of utilitarian principle, right? Which is greater good of greatest, greater numbers. So in this case, you're talking about 4 lakh people coming and settling there, and God knows, making nice salaries in running a transshipment port, if at all it ever comes through. And so where do 300 Shompen count in that whole story? Or where do 1200 or 2000 or, the Nicobaris count in that story? And I think that's the fundamental starting point, that the number of people involved is so small that you just do not care about their rights or their well-being or their welfare. And I think Rajshekhar's last chapter on this, the sort of the broader nature of misgovernance in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, for me was a real eye-opener. Because he points out that it's not just a case of this project, where particular processes, I mean, a large number of regulations and laws and everything have been violated. But if you look at the overall manner in which governance is happening in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, it is not, over the last 20 years or 15 years, it is not towards the welfare of the islanders. Even the non-indigenous, whatever the population that is there, because Andamans has a very mixed population, as all of you know who have been there. But it is not even towards their basic welfare. Cutting down the number of ships available to move between islands, making payments to buy new ships, and then at the last minute scuttling the idea and saying we don't need these ships anymore because everybody is flying from island to island. I mean, any of you who has tried to go to the Andaman knows the kind of crazy fares, airfares that are often involved in being able to fly there. So, getting rid of ships, junking existing ships because they're anyway at the end of their life, not replacing them. Just one example of the kind of misgovernance that is happening in terms of ignoring islander welfare and focusing entirely on external capital that will do investments and so on. So that larger picture of misgovernance is something for us to keep in mind when we talk about the particular violations that have also happened here, that we are really in a phase of real misgovernance. And we need to keep that larger problem in mind as we move along. So with that, I'm going to stop my comments and open up the floor for, I just want to end with one very interesting thought that was triggered by an earlier review of the first volume of the book. So in the first volume, one of the reviewers writes, the book worked like an out-of-breath town crier arriving in the crowded places of our minds to inform us of the happenings of our beloved archipelago. And I want to say that this book is perhaps where the town crier has caught his or her breath and kind of sat down and is in a more quiet voice telling us the same story in more detail with more data, more information, and of course more tears. Thank you.
And that reviewer is here somewhere, Lakshmi Nair, who's one of the also organizers of the festival. There she is. So I mean, yeah, you can show your hand again. Yeah. So this was a review she wrote for the Journal of Threatened Taxa, and I think it was it meant a lot to us. So thank you, Lakshmi. Yeah, but
questions? Yes.
Can we have a mic here?
Thank you. This may be an unpopular question. China's threat is real, and we know that China has been trying to be very aggressive around India, right? So is there a way where we can protect the indigenous population of the islands as well as counter the China's threat? What is your opinion?
So, I mean, why do you think this project is to counter China's threat?
No,
What is the evidence?
I'm not
what
saying,
is the evidence? What is the evidence on hand to say that is the purpose of the project?
I'm not saying the project is right or wrong.
No.
I'm
question
asking your opinion.
Okay, Pankaj, if I can.
You want to respond? Okay.
Yeah, so I'd actually tagged that chapter and not got a chance to talk about it. Chapter 15 is about bolstering security without ecological harm. So it's a very interesting chapter because it engages with the so-called enemy, as in the other side of the story. So it's an interview with the retired Admiral Arun Prakash, who was the Joint Chief of Staff for that area for the Andaman Nicobar Islands. And he says that if security is the focus, we can meet our security needs with very minimal expansion of existing security and defense facilities in that area. And he's very clear also that China is not a threat. He actually gives a very detailed answer in terms of why China is not a threat. There may be other concerns that we may have, and therefore we may want to expand the defense infrastructure a little bit more. But that's about all we need to do. We don't need to really go in this direction. Anyway, most of the components of this project are commercial and not really security related. So That's the short answer.
So my attempt to provoke you was that there is nothing in this project that is of a strategic defense nature. 1 lakh crores is meant as a completely commercial project. There's a transshipment port, there's a tourism project, so there's nothing to do with defense. And there's a rhetoric, and they fall back upon this argument whenever there are difficult questions. So that's the point, yeah.
There was a question here. Yeah.
Talk, and also congratulations on the book. I have a two-part question. One is on the broader context, just to continue the discussion. Are there some examples where development actually, doesn't threaten sort of mitigation and local population, indigenous wealth, and those kind of aspects as a country or in a larger context? And the second part is how how a non-participant like an academic or somebody who goes there can help local communities to fight or mobilize some of their actions.
So there are examples, but then we have to rethink the definition of development. Like even here, there are chapters which talk about what is it that the Nicobaris want. Like, okay, maybe the Shompen don't want to have any contact, but the Nicobaris are not saying they're already in contact. They're fully, they have an administration and elected whatever government and so on. So what do they want? They are asking for health, better educational facilities, and a few other things that will strengthen their existing livelihoods. So that is development for them. And that can be achieved without destroying any more forest, right? So there are ways in which, provided we redefine development as what people want, and not what capitalists or what, a state which is in the pocket of capitalists want in the name of development.
I think we are out of time. Yeah. So yeah, as we are out of time, I'm just going to finish by making this plea that these books have actually been a cry or a plea for help. I mean, it's not like been very pleasant to put the books together. So I think there are many ways, and I think Ganesh was asking how we can contribute. We can talk about that offline. But as the books are there, first to kind of inform yourself, I think that would be, I would urge you all to pick up a copy of the books, the other books, and be in touch if there's anything that you would like to do. There's one quick question by a young participant there. Quickly can be taken. Yeah.
Okay, so I have two questions. The first one is, like, since after hearing your talk, I sort of figured out, like, no matter how many economic or logistical reasons we give, there's probably going to be some way for the people in charge of this project to do some sort of gymnastics and escape the reason or something. So is there any hope of stopping this project before it actually begins construction or before the actual negative side effects begin to show up? And the second part of the question is, like, based on how, everyone here is listening to your speech, I can tell, like, a lot of people, including me, like, don't like the idea of this project being an actual reality. So it was, for now, I think most of us would like it to just remain something in the imagination of some random guy. So are the, like, protests of all of us here actually reaching the ears of the people who are behind the project, or is it just remaining with us for now?
No, I think there is huge amount of possibility and hope, and I think that's what we all work on. And I think, just quickly, that each one of us can kind of operate in our own ways. We require research, we require communication, we require activism, we require people to enter the courts, we require good social media, we require translations. School students have been doing projects on this project. So I think the more we are aware, I think that is, and I am hopeful that what we are saying will reach the ears of the powers, and they will see the sense of what we are saying. And the other thing I would also say is that, I think there are, and like Sharad would agree, there are so many fires burning around this country. Environment, ecological, people. So maybe there are things closer home that some of us can work with and help in the larger thing as well. So not everybody needs to look out for the Nicobars. It'll be great if you did, but I think there's a lot that can be done. And the first step would be to really get a sense of the scale of the project, and then find spaces in which talking to your friends, talking to in school, to, whatever is possible, writing a letter to the concerned authorities, things like that. So I think every small step will certainly count, and it is very, very valuable. There's no doubt about that. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. With that, we wrap up this session. I request both of you to kindly remain on the stage. We do have a token of appreciation. And for doing the honors, I take this opportunity to invite Natesh sir onto the stage. So please join me. He's the author of Iconic Trees of India. I request you to join me on the stage to present a token of appreciation on behalf of the Green Literature Festival team. And yes, everyone, a huge round of applause for this insightful and thought-provoking session. Can we please have a group photograph? You can find our author, Mr. Pankaj, right here in the hall, in the area, so you can get his copies, the signed copy from the author, so make sure to grab the signed copy from Mr. Pankaj. Once again, thank you so much.